everyone, and welcome to another episode of Living on Blockchain. Today, we are speaking to Rachel from HaloFi. Rachel has been working, in the Web3 space for a little while now, and earlier she was working in, Web2 as DevRel, and even before that, she was working as a secondary school teacher. So she's had quite a journey. And it's always very exciting to meet fellow founders and talk to them, ideate with them about the platforms they are building that have real use cases. This was a very interesting conversation, deep diving into various aspects of HaloFi and the new product, that they have just recently launched that has seen lots of users save a lot of money in crypto. So a very exciting conversation indeed. I can't wait for you guys to hear this. Let's deep dive right in.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you so much for making the time to speak to me today. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for inviting me on, Tarisha. It's a real honor to be on here today. Super busy, as I imagine you are, but very good and lots of exciting things in the pipeline.
Excellent. And we would like to know all about that. So, for our listeners, can you tell us a little about your background and how you got into Web3?
Yeah, of course. So my background was actually in development and then later in developer relations. So if you're not familiar with developer relations, it's sort of the marketing side of marketing developer products to developers. So I worked for a couple of Web3 crypto projects, also some Web2 more traditional tech companies, Twilio. Prior to that, I was a JavaScript developer, working a lot of React and some Node. And then actually in another lifetime before that, I actually used to be a secondary school teacher. So I've had quite a few different roles, experiences, but somehow they all tie together in the end. I think there's definitely lots of skills you pick up along the way, but quite a wealth of different experience, really.
That sounds very diverse and very obviously, like you said, it all kind of tied up in the end. But how did you, take the leap from, say, a secondary school teacher, then to DevRel, and then now into Web3 as a founder?
No, it's an interesting question. So I did come via development. So I was a teacher, but I was actually teaching. My undergrad degree is in geography, so I was teaching that. But the school I was teaching at, they also got me to teach graphic design, and I really enjoyed the kind of creative design aspect of that. So it sort of occurred to me that maybe programming would be a good way that I could kind of get the creative aspect of building stuff, and maybe get some more hard skills along the same process. So I left teaching and then I did a boot camp back in 2015, and from that I did a few years working as a developer, but I think I also got into developer relations partly because of my background in teaching, because a lot of what you do in DevRel is communication, creating tutorials. You're dealing with people a lot. So it was actually quite a nice fit between my previous experience and the technical knowledge that I had acquired.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that seems very logical, because as a DevRel, you're not just because in order to market it to devs, any kind of a product, you need to understand it well, and you need to be able to explain it well, and you can only do that when you come from a background wherein patience is key, perhaps, so that you can put your point across firmly, but in a way that would make it clear, especially with 0 to 1 products, right?
No, definitely. And I think, for me, having that technical background, even now when I do sometimes write code, but it's rare. It'd be more of a prototype or something quickly. But having this kind of background really does help with the understanding of like how you stitch things together, thinking about architecture, thinking about APIs, SDKs. So for me, getting that boot camp and getting those years of working as a developer was actually really, really foundational in helping me kind of grow in tech, essentially.
Right, absolutely. I completely agree, I think. So, when you started working in DevRel, was that in a Web2 company or was that in a Web3 company?
It's actually in a Web3 company, but I got into DevRel when I was kind of unofficially when I was working at a Web2 company, because I started to host meetups and talk at events. So sort of kind of transitionary, but the first kind of paid job was in a Web2 company, in a Web3 company.
Oh, okay. And can you mind telling us about that company and how was your experience there?
Yeah, so I worked for a company called Lisk. They are a blockchain project. They building a kind of JavaScript client blockchain based out of Berlin. So I learned a bunch of stuff around their delegated proof of stake. So I learned a lot about the kind of community governance aspect. Definitely when you're DevRel, you're very community facing. So that was like really fascinating to see. And yeah, it was just like a good way for me to start working in the space of crypto and Web3. But I'd already been involved in my kind of spare time for about almost a year before that. So this is I got in 2017. I think it's quite common that kind of bull runs pull people in. And then I started working full time in 2018.
Wow. Okay. And I'm very curious about people who kind of work initially in Web3 and then Web2, and I'm sorry, then move to Web3. And yours is a journey pretty much like that. So how did you make that leap?
I think for me, it was quite a nice transition because the Web2 company I was working for when I started to host meetups and using their space to do that was an identity company. So even though they were Web2, they worked a lot with like crypto exchanges, providing like identity KYC solutions. And there was quite a lot of people within that company who were quite interested in crypto. So and I think they were also working on a decentralized identity research project as well. So there was actually kind of a bit of an overlap in the kind of Web2 space and the Web3 space that kind of got me in. But I would say it's quite different in the sense that obviously when you work in Web3, you have this kind of two-way engagement with the community that you really just don't have. The kind of relationship with your users is very different when you're in Web2 versus Web3.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. So can you tell us perhaps how was this a bit of a cultural shock to you? The way the communication changes in Web2 versus Web3 with the community or with your potential users.
Yeah, I think it was, for me, it wasn't a huge culture shift because I had also, by this point, I'd been in the Web3 community. So I'd been in, the Discords and Rocket Chat and Reddit, etc. But I think obviously it kind of scales up when you're doing it full time. Especially I think for me, when you go through the kind of market cycle from 2017 into 2018, it's like a very different sentiment in the community. So I think that's definitely something that you get exposed to, like no matter what you're kind of doing in the space. So I think that was a different experience. But I think it's like the community, it does bring a lot of opportunities. It's great for like having that dialogue, getting user feedback, kind of co-creating and building. But of course, like it does require some kind of thought about how you approach things, and how does it there's always like a kind of relationship that you are building with the community and the community members.
Absolutely. I think that is the most imperative thing, that you're constantly sort of building an engagement and a relationship with these potential users who are actually your community members at the moment, and that is what kind of sets Web3 apart from Web2. So just so that if to understand if I'm getting it right, you were initially working for a company that were also dabbling in Web3, and that is how you got introduced to Web3, or were you already dabbling with the tech before coming in contact with your team who were creating the ID product, among other things?
Yeah, so it's almost like the Web2 company I was working for, I think at that point they didn't, or I still think to this day they don't have any production Web3 products or code. But because they deal with identity, a lot of their clients and biz dev work would be with exchanges, crypto exchanges. So there was like a kind of relationship with the industry. But actually during that time, I did also start to, work with Remix, start deploying like Solidity ERC20 contracts, just starting to learn some of the basics around like kind of EVM development. And there was a few developers from that company who are also kind of going on that journey at the same time. I think also like, obviously when it is a kind of a buzzy time in crypto, people kind of get in and get excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that is when it's most noisy, and that is what kind of draws the crowd mostly. Not always the good kind, but yeah, so, a lot of builders get encouraged as well, but a lot of speculators get encouraged at that time as well. So now,
Yeah, I
coming
was
to, yeah,
definitely during that time. I bought a bit of crypto at the beginning of that year. Obviously, it's nice to see it go up in price, but typically
right, yeah.
I was naive and didn't sell it. So I did become. I think there's that meme about I'm in it for the tech, right? And then I was like,
Yeah.
no, 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 I'm learning. I'm learning solidity. I'm in it for the tech. It doesn't matter. So I was that meme.
Right. A lot of us are. I think we all become that meme at some point or the other. You stay for as long as the long-term builders stay in crypto. I think all of us are a meme at some point. Then that same meme. Yeah. So now coming to what you're doing currently, can you tell us a little about HaloFi and what you're building? Because the premise itself is very, very exciting, and I'll tell you why once you tell me how you got around to building it and what the platform does.
Yeah. So at HaloFi, we're all about making it easy for people to save with crypto, get the benefits of DeFi and yield on stable tokens, but doing it in a really accessible and mobile friendly way. It's our vision really to build crypto that almost not building for degens, building for like non-degens, building for I don't know, more regular people. So we have a product that we launched back in November. It's called HaloFi Save. We've been around actually for almost 3 years. So we have another product called HaloFi Challenges, but I think it's most interesting for me today to talk about our new product, which is HaloFi Save. And this is it's a mobile friendly interface into DeFi. So you can go there, you can easily top up. We work with various different fiat on-ramping partners and then get access to earning like APY, earning yield on dollar peg stable tokens. We also make it easy for people to kind of set goals and save towards a goal. So it's almost a little bit like sort of the fintech like challenger bank interface into saving with stable tokens. So really that is our mission, to help make this more accessible. I think if you go to, you can go to a lot of the DeFi interfaces if you already have like MetaMask set up and you're familiar with them and you've done your research on things like impermanent loss and you understand the risk. But for like 90% of the population, they don't have time to do that, and it's like too many overheads. So we want to smooth that out, make it easier for people to get going, and hopefully just make the benefits more readily available to a much wider audience of people.
Right. No, I think that is very, very important, right? Because we need to cater for people other than degens as well, because that's otherwise going to be a very, very small user base, like you mentioned. And making DeFi accessible, I think, is key for reaching anywhere close to mass adoption that we keep talking about.
No, definitely. And I think for most people, like even setting up a wallet can be tricky, and it's
very daunting.
Very daunting. So it's really exciting to see there's a lot of innovation coming, things like account abstraction, making it easier for people to get going. We work with a number of different wallet partners who've done a great job of the UX, and it's getting there. It's definitely improving every day. But as those of us who work in the industry, we know how hard it is to make a seamless user experience using this technology. So it's definitely a sort of ongoing process, but I see it getting better each month, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a lot of work that is happening on that, and a lot of builders are trying to solve that problem of accessibility and making it more easier, making sure that the user interface is actually usable and it's not intimidating for any user, because ultimately I think we're all building for the future wherein users using decentralized applications don't even have to really care about what is happening in the background, and they're using it pretty much akin to Web2 applications, and not necessarily do everyone understand how the Web2 applications work and how does the internet work, but everybody's on it anyway.
No, I definitely agree with that, and I think it's sort of there's a little bit of an art of like simplifying it enough to give that experience, but still still at the same time, so what we try to do is we have like sort of advanced tabs and areas that we could put more of the complex stuff, like links to smart contract addresses, etc., because we also feel like we don't want to hide that completely away from all users, right? Because if you are curious enough, and some users do want to really dig into the details of this, and as they should, do your own research. I definitely agree with that ethos of making that available to the wider like user group, but then it's not for all users. Some users want to get going, try something out, maybe they're going to put a small amount in, see how they go first, but still having the underlying technology transparent and open for people to dig into if they really want to get into the weeds of that. I think it's kind of the mixing of these two things like together, like that's kind of gets us into something that's usable but also sticks to the original values that we're trying to build for.
Absolutely. I think that is very, very important. So when I say that, okay, we want to build for the future and we want to build where the user is not fully perhaps aware of the intricacies of Web3, I'm just trying to, put forward that it should be easy. Like my parents perhaps, or my grandparents, right? They are online, they're using, say, applications like WhatsApp, but they perhaps are not the most tech savvy, and nevertheless they are on it. So I would like to see a future like that for decentralized applications, obviously still upholding the ethos of open source technology and decentralized technology. That goes without saying.
100%.
So talking a little more about the platform HaloFi, can you perhaps tell us like the user flow? If somebody wants to sign up right now on the platform, what are the kind of features that they can utilize, and how does it work in general if somebody is coming on the platform to sign?
Yeah, so with HaloFi Save, you can go to save.halofi.me and you can connect your wallet. We support pretty much most of the wallets and have Wallet Connect. We also, quite excitingly, we've just the beginning of this year, we've launched a partnership with MiniPay Opera's wallet, and speaking about usability, they've done a fantastic job of building out a very user-friendly wallet that is all centered around stable tokens. So you can pay gas in stable tokens, you can send it to people's numbers, and it's sort of baked into the Opera browser in like a number of locations. So it's really, really amazing work that they've done. And we are one of the kind of first created apps or dApps on there for saving. So you can, if you are a MiniPay user, and they've launched this across, I think the key regions are like Nigeria, Kenya, and Ghana. If you're a user there, you can come via MiniPay and then dive into HaloFi Save. But however you reach our app, you're going to get the same experience where you can either start depositing, and we have just an easy way for you to track, and you can actually see your interest go up in real time. We are getting yield from a protocol called Mula, which is a lending and borrowing protocol on Celo. So you can deposit your Celo dollars, CUSD, into there. We also allow users to set a goal. So maybe you're saving for a house or a holiday, a phone, etc. Then you can put in the amount that you want to save, and it will show you your progress along towards that goal. And we also have like a kind of email reminder system, so just giving you that nudge to make those deposits, monthly. So that's what we have at the moment with HaloFi Save. It's the kind of first iteration of the product that we've launched. We will have more features coming in the future, and then we also have another product which is called HaloFi Challenges, which was our original product, and that's still around saving, but it's actually around like gamified saving. So we have essentially smart contracts that ask you to make a weekly or monthly deposit, and as long as you hit deposits in that challenge, we call it, so maybe you need to make 4 weekly deposits into that. As long as you make the deposits, again, we're using similar sorts of yield sources, so Mola. We also work with Aave on Polygon and Base as well, and Curve. And then as long as you hit the goals, you get the interest. If you missed a deposit, so maybe you only did 2 out of 4, then you'd still get back your principal if you wait to the end, but the yield that your deposits generated will go to the people who did complete their saving goals. So these are kind of the two products we have at the moment. One is more focused on gamification and incentivization, and one is just more focused on really easily being able to like hop on and start depositing and making those savings. So it's kind of different focus, but the same mission to kind of, basically empower people to use crypto to kind of grow their personal wealth.
That is cool. That is so cool. It's wonderful. I think that these real use cases are being executed perfectly. And more power to you guys. You guys have the app being a part of like the 50 most used apps, I think, on like various aggregator tools, as well as you help your users save over, I think, 4 million, right, dollars. And this is something that we've picked up from your website. It's impressive, but can you tell us like a little bit about the response from the users, and if you could share like a success story or a feedback that has really stood out for you while building HaloFi?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of something specific. We have the 4 million that's been saved. That's gone through our HaloFi challenges, saving smart contracts. So we track that. We have some users that are very with that, they're very regular. And actually, it's quite interesting when we look into the stats. I think around like 85 to 90% of people are hitting their goals, which to me feels quite high compared to sort of, at least when when you casually set your own goals yourself, like more than often I actually do forget to deposit for them. So we are seeing like people being very very diligent with it. We also had a bunch of like, I think one of the fun things about being a Web3 product is, you get community memes, you get community artwork. We used to create a lot of NFT giveaways, and we had some really amazing submissions, 3D artwork made by our community. So that was amazing to see. And then recently with our new product, HaloFi Save, we got a bunch of really good feedback. We actually went out to Lagos in Nigeria, where we've been launching the product. We ran some user testing. Obviously, you get a bunch of actionable improvements, which is what you want. But the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. And we even had some community member who traveled a 10-hour round trip to come and do some user testing for us, which was very incredible to see. So yeah, it's been a really positive response from the community.
Right. This is wonderful. That you've seen such a, but honestly, I'm not surprised. I think any kind of a good use case and being executed well, it would see stickiness from the users, and the users will keep coming back to it. Now, let's talk a little about the challenges. Are there any specific challenges that you face in building and growing, specifically the community and the product, and how have you been able to overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when you're building any new product, there's like a whole host of different, challenges that you face. One is like, of course, like building something that people actually want and need. So that is kind of, just looking at, do you have product market fit? Is your application usable? So as I mentioned, we've done a bunch of like user testing. Our kind of community moderator, I think, is doing them every week, a session as well. We also we're quite on our analytics, so we're constantly looking at like user flows through the app. We can even see some of how users are using our application, so we're constantly looking at that and trying to figure out, does our application is it solving a real need, and then are we doing it in a way that's usable and makes sense to the users? So that's definitely a challenge, and it's just ongoing work that you have to do. And I think of course like growth and getting awareness for your product is always again like a challenge that any new product and business have. We've been very lucky in our partnerships. So most recently our partnership with Opera MiniPay has brought us a whole host of different users. And then even with HaloFi challenges, we found that sort of doing partnerships and cross marketing was actually very effective. We did a bunch of partnerships with like Avagotchi, and like Cello, Polygon, a whole Cometh, a whole host of different, everything from NFT projects to blockchain protocols to a whole range of different stuff. And I think one of the nice things about the space is you do have these like highly engaged community members who really want to try out new products and will also recommend you to, we've been recommended to connect with other projects via community members, so they can actually be acting as advocates for you, which is quite incredible. So that's definitely something that has been is a
helpful
challenge
to the community.
It's helpful to the community. I'm trying to think, obviously like there's typical problems like just hiring the best talent, making sure that you've got like always, when you're building a new product, you're always like juggling a lot of things, like growing a team, fundraising, building the product. So there's always a whole
There's
host of
always something. Yeah, there's a fire every day. Absolutely. Like I totally
yeah.
yeah.
And I think definitely as a founder, you sort of being able to make quick decisions and get the data you need, and also like getting enough data to make a decision is also another thing. And kind of being able to make those decisions quickly, I think is something that you learn to do.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely true. It's like I think one of the better things that a founder can do is have clarity and be able to take quick decisions, because it's a dynamic space, and when you're especially starting off and your project or your product is still I think it's a ever dynamic sort of a process. I think the product, you're always iterating, adding something. So your ability to be clear and to take quick action, I think that really takes you very far.
Definitely. I think startups are all about speed, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Bigger companies, they have resource, right? But it can't be simple.
Yeah, no, I completely